They want peace. And what's happening in Iraq? And what has happened in Lebanon and in Palestine? Well, and what has happened in 100 years in Latin America and in the world? And now the new threats against Venezuela, new threats against Venezuela, new threats against Iran. He talked to the people of Lebanon. Many of you, he said, have seen how your homes and communities were trapped in the crossfire. Some cynicism. What a capacity to lie barefacedly to the world. The bombs in Beirut and fired with millimetric precision, that's crossfire. I believe the president is thinking of those Western movies where they would shoot from the waist and someone was trapped in the crossfire. Imperialist fire, fascist fire, assassin fire, and genocide fire. The one of the empire and of Israel against the innocent people of Palestine and of Lebanon. That's the truth. Now, they say that they suffer, that we are suffering because we see your homes destroyed. To sum it up, the President of the United States came to talk to the people. He came to talk to the people. He also came to say, I brought, Mrs. President, a document, right? Because I was reading some speeches early this morning and updating my own speech. He talked to the people of Afghanistan, to the people of Lebanon, to the people of Iran, I tell you, to the people of Lebanon, I tell you, to the people of Afghanistan, I tell you. Well, one asks oneself, just as the President of the United States says, I tell you, to those people, what would those people tell him? If those people could talk, what would they tell him? I will collect that for you because I know most part of the soul of those peoples, the peoples of the South, the peoples that have been run over. They would say, Yankee Empire, go home. That would be the cry that would gush forth everywhere if the peoples of the world could talk to him as one, in one voice to the empire of the United States. That's why, Mrs. President, colleagues, friends, we came here last year to this same room as every year in the last 8. And we were saying something that today is completely confirmed, and I believe that practically no one can stand up to defend it, to defend the system of the United Nations. Let's accept it with honesty. The system of the United Nations, born after the Second World War, collapsed. It toppled over. It's no good. Oh, it's well to come here and give speeches, to see each other once a year. Yes, it's good for that. And to write very long documents and make good reflections and listen to good speeches like the one of Evo yesterday, like the one of Lula. Yes, it is good for that. And for many speeches, the one we were listening just now, of the President of Sri Lanka and the one of the President of Chile. But this assembly of ours has been converted into an organ that is merely a deliberative one, just a deliberative organ with no power to impact in the slightest manner the terrible reality that the world is living today. That's why again we propose, Venezuela again proposes here today on this day of September the 20th, that we refound the United Nations. And we made 4 modest propositions last year, Mrs. President, that we consider, well, of an unpostponable urgency for us to take them on. Well, the heads of state, the heads of government, our ambassadors, our representatives, and that we shall discuss them. First, the expansion of the Security Council. Yesterday, Lula was saying it here, in its permanent categories as well as in the non-permanent ones, giving room to new developed and underdeveloped countries, to the third world, as new permanent members. That in the first place. Second, well, the application of efficient methods for the attention and solution of world conflicts, transparent methods of debate, of decisions. Third, it seems fundamental to us the immediate suppression And that is the cry of everyone, of the anti-democratic mechanism of the veto. The veto in the decisions of the Security Council. Take a recent example. The immoral veto of the government of the United States allowed the Israeli forces to freely destroy Lebanon in our own faces, preventing a resolution in the Security Council of the United Nations. And in the fourth place, it is necessary to strengthen, we always say it, the role, the attributions of the Secretary General of the United Nations. Yesterday, the Secretary General was giving us a speech, practically a farewell speech, and he was recognizing that in these 10 years, what the world has done is become more complicated, and that the grave problems of the world, hunger, misery, violence, the violation of human rights, what they've done is become more serious. This is a terrible consequence of the collapse of the system of the United Nations and the American imperialist pretension. On the other hand, Mrs. President, Venezuela decided years ago to fight this battle from inside the United Nations, recognizing the United Nations as members that we are, with our voice, with our modest reflections. We are an independent voice to represent the dignity and the search for peace, the reformulation of the international system, to denounce the persecution and the aggressions of the hegemony against the peoples of the planet. In that manner, Venezuela has presented its name. This native soil of Bolívar has presented its name and has nominated itself for a seat as a non-permanent member of the Security Council. Well, what do you know? The government of the United States has launched an open aggression, an immoral aggression in the whole world to try to impede that Venezuela be elected freely to occupy a seat in the Security Council. They are afraid of the truth. The empire is afraid of the truth, of the independent voices, accusing us of being extremists. They are the extremists. I want here to thank all those countries that have announced their support to Venezuela. Even though the voting is secret and it is not necessary that anyone announces it, but I believe that given the open aggression of the American empire, well, that has accelerated the support of many countries, which morally strengthens Venezuela greatly, our people, our government. The Mercosur, for example, has announced as a whole their support to Venezuela, our brothers of the Mercosur. Venezuela is now a full member of the Mercosur with Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay, and many other countries in Latin America like Bolivia. The CARICOM as a whole announced its support to Venezuela. The Arab League as a whole pronounced its support to Venezuela. I'm very thankful to the Arab world, our brothers of Arabia, that profound Arabia, our brothers of the Caribbean,